Hello good people, my name is William, and today we return for some more mythology. In the area that I grew up in, Greek mythology was never something that really featured in schools, but the first story I was taught was that of Icarus, the boy who flew too close to the sun. Now, in the grander scale of Greek mythology, Icarus has quite a minor role. But there's no doubt that he's become an iconic figure, and his stories are still told and retold to this day. It's likely that even if your knowledge of Greek mythology is limited, you would have at least heard the story of Icarus, or know the name. Today, we'll be going over the story of Icarus and his father Daedalus as we attempt to understand why the story has become so popular and exactly what it means. This story takes us to the island of Crete, during the rule of King Minos. Minos, as some of you might know, had a minor problem of not knowing where to house a certain Minotaur, as he kept running rampant through his kingdom and killing all of his citizens. To solve this issue, he enlisted the help of Daedalus, a master craftsman who had previously arrived in Crete after being exiled from Athens. Daedalus was instructed to create a large labyrinth that was capable of holding the Minotaur. Minos was so pleased with Daedalus' work that his status and position began to grow as he went from a slave to a valued member of Minos' kingdom. The downfall of Daedalus began with the arrival of the Athenian hero Theseus, who with the help from Minos' daughter Ariadne and Daedalus himself was able to slay the Minotaur and return from the labyrinth. He then sailed back to Athens with both of the king's daughters. Naturally, Minos was infuriated by the actions of Daedalus and his daughter, conspiring against him with the Athenians. But with his daughter gone, the blame fell solely on Daedalus. Rather than lose his precious craftsman, Minos decided against the execution of Daedalus. Instead, he locks both Daedalus and his son Icarus away in the labyrinth that they created. There are some variant sources that suggest they were locked away in a tower, but personally I prefer the irony of being locked away in a prison that you yourself designed. Having designed the labyrinth, Icarus and Daedalus were aware that escape for most would be impossible, but Daedalus was not most men, and the master craftsman began surmising a plan for his son and himself to escape, aware that they would have to leave Crete forever. Daedalus planned to do so through the skies, as there would be no chance in escaping Minos' navy. Daedalus knew that he would have to construct some method of flying, but this was no easy task as a manned flight had never been undertaken before. It was thought that one morning a flock of birds flew over the head of Daedalus, and he was instantly inspired, asking Icarus to collect all the feathers he could, just like the birds he had just seen. Daedalus would build a wooden frame in the shape of wings, and when Icarus had amassed the required feathers, they were glued to the wooden frames using hot wax. Once Daedalus had crafted 2 pairs of wings, he carefully warned Icarus, telling him that the wings had many flaws and flying too high in the sky would cause the wax to melt, but flying too close to the sea would cause the feathers to soak up, and the excess seawater would make them too heavy to fly. The following day, Icarus and Daedalus decided they would attempt to finally escape Crete. The two left in the air and began flapping their wings. The invention of Daedalus had worked, and Icarus soared through the sky as the father and son escaped Crete without being noticed. The further they flew, the more Icarus grew in confidence, but his confidence soon turned into overconfidence. Icarus was so overwhelmed by the feeling that he believed he now knew what it felt like to be a god, and in his newfound divinity, he disregarded his father's warnings. He flew higher and higher, and as his father could only watch him fly closer and closer to the sun, the wax on Icarus' wings began to melt, and the feathers attached to the wooden frames began to drop off. And when Icarus had finally realized how high he had flown, it was already too late. He began to plummet, holding on to his bare wooden frame for his life. Daedalus could do nothing but watch as Icarus plunged into the sea, dying upon impact. The area of water Icarus landed would be known as the Icarian Sea, and the island where his body washed up would also be named Icaria in memory of Icarus. In most variations of the story, after watching his son die, Daedalus flew to safety. King Minos would begin his search after Daedalus, as he would not let any craftsman like that work for anyone else. The hero Heracles witnessed Icarus' death, and having recognized him as the son of Daedalus, he then performed the funeral rites that Daedalus could not. Over the years, people have taken dozens of meanings away from the story of Icarus on a very basic level. The story essentially tells us to listen to our elders, but as we delve deeper, the story means so much more. It highlights the carelessness of youth and some of the consequences that it may bring. We see Daedalus in inexperience maintain level-headedness, while Icarus is overwhelmed and somewhat loses control, disregarding everything he was told that led to his death. You could also see the death of Icarus as the gods punishing Daedalus and his son. In the eyes of the gods, men were never meant to fly, and as an attempt to elevate themselves to the same level as the gods, Icarus was killed and Daedalus faced a lifetime of guilt and regret. The story teaches us to remain level-headed, and somewhat warns us against the pursuit of instant gratification. If Icarus could have listened to his father, and once they were safe, he could have experienced flying many more times, but he was unable to see the long-term picture, only concerned by how good it felt now in the moment, and he was punished for doing so. The fall of Icarus is a tragic and also necessary tale of moderation and caution. Hopefully, I've been able to shed some light on the story, so that you may have learned a thing or two. If you have any ideas for future things to talk about, to the greater masses that are the subscribers, then make sure to list them in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to leave a like and subscribe. If you're already subscribed, then make sure to check again or to turn on the bell button. I hope you all have a wonderful day. William, out.